Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Lost Lifts, the series where I look back and try out old exercises so I can give my thoughts and see how they hold up. In today's episode, we're going to be tackling a brutally intense neck exercise, the neck bridge press. If you've ever tried any kind of neck bridge, you know how difficult even the bodyweight versions are, so now imagine adding weight to it. This specific version comes once again from the 1911 book The Way to Live by George Hackenschmidt. However, the neck bridge as an exercise is a very old exercise found throughout various different regions and time periods. It's usually associated with grappling training, and in the past many prolific weightlifters were also wrestlers, including George Hackenschmidt, so it's not too surprising he included it in his exercise book. In this day and age, neck bridges are usually only performed by wrestlers, especially the weighted version, which is almost unheard of outside of grappling communities. Neck bridges are also sometimes utilized by strikers and other martial artists as well, most famously, or perhaps infamously, being Mike Tyson using them to great effect to build an incredibly strong neck. And on that note, we should briefly go over the controversy surrounding neck bridges. Mike Tyson is often cited as both a prime example for the effectiveness of neck bridges, but also the potential dangers of them, seeing as he not only got incredible results from doing them, but also got a serious neck injury that he directly attributed to doing them. However, if we actually take a look at how he was doing them, we can see that the danger is, in my opinion and experience, greatly exaggerated. First point to note is that with the insane amount of volume he was allegedly doing as much as 30-minute sessions in which he would do hundreds of reps almost every day. Although those numbers could be exaggerated, it should become clear that we're looking at a scenario of simply doing too much of a good thing. Then on top of that, consider that he was a professional athlete, meaning it's extremely possible and more likely than not he was using steroids when he was training and competing. I'm not saying for sure that he did use them, but you have to at least acknowledge that it's a very real possibility. And if you don't know, steroid users are much more at risk of developing joint and tendon injuries, whereas natural athletes are actually very resistant to these types of injuries. So with that as another possible factor, on top of the shockingly overlooked fact that his career involved getting punched full force in the head by men who weigh over 200 pounds, not just in fights but in sparring, the picture completely changes. And keep in mind he was a hard sparrer, which is super dangerous. No amount of neck training can fully protect you from that kind of damage day in and day out. Neck injuries are not at all uncommon for boxers, and most of them don't do neck bridges. It's a sport with inherent risk of damage to the head and neck. With all factors being considered, it becomes a lot clearer that neck bridges themselves weren't really the issue in this case. They probably actually helped him a great deal, but his training was simply too intense, and in a sport as extreme as boxing, completely preventing injuries is almost impossible, especially at the level Mike Tyson was competing at. He just overdid it with a legitimately good exercise. As a side note, these same risk factors pop up in most every anecdote I've seen shared online by people claiming they've gotten injured from neck bridges. They always do them way too much, too often, use improper form, and are usually competing in a sport that already places a lot of strain on the neck on top of that. But that doesn't mean neck bridges don't have a place in training for combat sports athletes and martial artists. Far from it, especially for natural athletes. To provide a counterexample, let's look at George Hackenschmidt. George Hackenschmidt's time was long before steroids even existed, and the neck bridge has been around even before that. I'm not saying for sure that the shifted opinion on neck bridges is solely a result of steroids existing, but it is interesting that neck bridges existed for so long before steroids did, and only became controversial after steroids were invented. Now, George Hackenschmidt was notable for not only being long-lived, but for training and staying physically capable well into old age, and he was particularly excellent at doing neck bridges, capable of using the neck bridge to perform what I would consider to be one of the most impressive feats of strength in all of human history, which I will reveal later. So here we have someone who was extremely good at neck bridges, even doing them with weights, but didn't train them excessively and used proper form, staying strong and injury-free even into old age. George Hackenschmidt, like many other strong men of his era, only lifted heavy a few times a week. On other days, lighter weights would have been used or other physical activity would have been performed. He was also a prolific wrestler, another sport that can put a lot of stress on the neck and head, but he didn't get any kind of serious injury. So you can see from his example that you can safely achieve incredible neck strength from neck bridges that even transfers over to staying safe in your sport. With everything in consideration, plus my own experience to go off of, I do believe neck bridges are in fact safe to perform if done with proper form, not performed excessively and progressed slowly. And you really do not need a lot of volume for these to be super effective. Let's not get it twisted though, even a bodyweight neck bridge is an advanced strength move. You don't just jump right into doing them, and this opinion is corroborated by George Hackenschmidt as well. For most people, maybe they are going to be quote-unquote too dangerous, but not because they're inherently bad for you, but because the vast majority of people don't possess the neck strength and mobility to even begin to perform them safely. I would compare them to deadlifts or heavy squats, two far more popular exercises but ones people have many misconceptions about. They're all incredibly potent exercises that build strength better than almost anything else, but for many people they can cause problems simply because a lot of people don't possess the strength or mobility to perform them correctly. Deadlifts don't require a ton of mobility to be fair, but for a sedentary person who's really deconditioned, even doing a conventional deadlift properly could be too much of a mobility challenge. As such, a lot of people who try them can easily get hurt, not because the exercise itself is dangerous, but because it's easy to underestimate just how difficult they actually are. The key, as with anything, is to respect the difficulty but never to fear it. As long as you progress gradually, focus on good form, and listen to your body, you can stay safe and master almost any exercise. If you just give yourself enough time to recover from them, focus on good form, work within your means, you'll be fine and all the better for doing them. Now that being said, perhaps some people already have some prior neck injuries, a frail spine, or something of the sort that would legitimately make it a bad idea to do neck bridges. In that case, of course you could find alternative ways of neck training. But if you're able-bodied, have a resilient and mobile spine, and especially if you're already strong, there's really no reason you can't work your way up to doing neck bridges. So before I get started testing the neck bridge press, let's hear how George Hackenschmidt sets up the neck bridge, and I'll expand on that to tell you how to do these safely. Place a rather hard cushion under the head, a rolled up coat or the like if nothing else is available. The body should rest on the heels and crown of the head only. At first, this exercise may not be found easy of accomplishment, in which case the bridge should be perfected before the barbell press is attempted. The higher the bridge, the easier will the press be found. A capital exercise for strengthening the muscles of the neck, nape, and spine. So to begin the bridge, you want to lie down, heels pretty close to the body, and just as George said, bridge up and keep the weight on the crown of your head, that's the top of your head, and keep your heels on the floor. It's not necessarily wrong to come up on the balls of your feet, but keeping your heels down is better established as proper form for the weighted version. You also want to avoid overextending your neck, which is a common mistake people make. If you want to work up to adding weight, I would generally avoid doing it. The neck should be slightly arched, but not too sharply. If you're basically face planting into the floor, you've gone too far. Proper form will look a little different for everyone, so keep that in mind, but that's a general guideline I'd follow. For beginners, all you have to do to make this exercise easier is put your hands on the floor in front of you and use them to take some weight off your neck, as much as you need, and just gradually over time, work on taking weight off your hands until you don't need them anymore. Even if you can only take your hands off the floor just for a second, just do that and slowly increase the time until you can bridge up and hold it for maybe 20 or more seconds without using them. If you lack the spinal flexibility to get into the proper position, work on a regular back bridge first. So now with that out of the way, I'm ready to try the press. Honestly, I hadn't done neck bridges in a long time, but I used to love doing them, and I did them all the time without any issues, so I don't know why I stopped doing them. Perhaps the controversy around them started to get to me, but I'm mature enough now to come to my own conclusions. Before my testing day, I tried doing some bodyweight neck bridges just on their own, and I was surprised by how sore my neck muscles were just from that alone. Like, we're talking a good 3 days of soreness. So my hopes weren't high that I would be moving monumental amounts of weight, but let's see how I do. So I start just by doing a bodyweight bridge, not too bad. Then, since I don't want to jump the weight too quickly, I just try to press an empty curl bar. It weighs about 20 pounds. So far so good, pretty intense but not too difficult yet. Let's move on to the empty barbell. Mine weighs about 50 pounds, and here we start running into trouble. it's actually really hard to just get into position for this exercise. The book doesn't give any instructions for how to get the bar up, so I'm kind of just trying to figure it out. I tried bridging with the bar on my hips, which didn't work. Then I tried pulling the bar over, which really didn't work. Yeah, have you ever seen a 200-pound man struggle to move an empty barbell this much? Eventually, I figured keeping the bar over my chest was the most efficient way I could get into the bridge to press the bar up, and after a lot of trial and error, I managed to press 50 pounds. Well, hey, that was kind of hard, but now that I've figured out, surely I can press 70. I mean, it's only 70 pounds. Okay, clearly this lift is a lot harder than I thought, and unfortunately, despite my best efforts, I wasn't even able to lift my change plates. So I loaded the curl bar up to 50 and got another good press in for the thumbnail and to make myself feel a little better by at least moving a bar that has weight plates on it. So there we go. At the end of the day, I managed to get 50 pounds on my first time testing this lift. Also, by the way, I looked at the book again while writing the script for this video. In a different explanation of the exercise, it is shown to start from a pullover. I just wasn't skilled enough to actually do it that way yet. Suppose there isn't just one correct way of getting into position for this lift. Just keep in mind the pullover is a legit method, and if you're wondering why I didn't just use blocks or a rack to help get the bar in position, A, I don't have them, and B, they aren't used in the instructions of the books. Racks weren't even invented yet, so I wanted to figure out how to do the exercise without them. Honestly, before trying this, I wasn't so sure what the point of the press is since this is primarily a neck exercise. What's the point of the press? Is this one of those weird combination exercises you might find in a 5-minute follow-along workout video? Well, no, the press isn't really intended to be working your chest and triceps. There are other exercises for that. The press is, at least how it seems to me from trying it, more of a dynamic stability challenge for your neck, as well as a good test to see if your form is solid. It's also a bit of a way to kind of track the time you're holding the bridge without any kind of stopwatch or anything, because if you're adding reps with the same weight, you have to obviously hold the bridge for longer. And you're not going to be using as much weight as you can bench press or floor press with this, not even close for the overwhelming majority of people. So your neck strength will always be the limiting factor, and thus is what's primarily getting trained. This is a humbling exercise, but that's to be expected considering how difficult neck bridges are, even without weights. And I mean, considering how difficult it is, surely they weren't moving much weight with it. I mean, let's look at how much George was lifting and... Oh. That is insane. Most people can't even squat 311 pounds, and this guy was out here supporting all of that with just his neck. Yeah, this was the feat I was alluding to earlier. It's truly mind-boggling to imagine that someone was ever capable of such an insane feat of strength. And his max floor press was 360 pounds, meaning he was supporting just about 86.4% of his max floor press on his head. For reference, my untrained bridge lift of 50 pounds is only about 20% of my max floor press. Being able to lift so close to your max press with nearly all of that weight being supported just with your neck is truly incredible. Few people alive could match a feat like that today, if any. Even though my lift pales in comparison, it was still really freaking intense. My neck muscles were sore for almost the rest of the week afterwards. We're not just talking about the back of the neck soreness either, but complete neck muscle annihilation. I was having trouble just turning my head for a few days. And I do train my neck, but trying this exercise made me think my neck training wasn't nearly as good as I thought. It was the same level of soreness I had in my legs and hips after deadlifting heavy for the first time, to put in perspective just the insane level of stimulus. As I said, I did used to do bodyweight neck bridges a lot, but lately I've been doing neck curls and extensions plus heavy farmer's carries for my neck training. Some people would try to have you believe those are suitable replacements for neck bridges, but trust me, they don't even come close. And another factor here, and the reason why bridges have been chosen by martial artists over curls and extensions for centuries, is that bridges build more than just your muscles. Bridges are an extremely rare exercise that has you bearing weight on your skull. And what that means is that unlike other neck exercises, these are actually going to make the bones in your head and neck stronger. This is an aspect of all kinds of lifts that so many people overlook, the density aspect. Bearing weight, whether that's in a squat, deadlift, bench press, whatever, over time builds up the bones that are being put under pressure, and that's directly related to how much weight you're putting on them. I touched on that in my video about why bench pressing is good for strikers, but it applies to every lift. The bone density is very specific to what bones are actually being loaded. However, since most lifts don't directly load the neck and head, that means they don't build bone density in those areas. Now, you can also build bone density without heavy weights through impact, whether that's from jumping, punching, plyometrics, etc., but that option is simply not available for the head and neck, since taking enough impact to the head to cause bone remodeling would obviously also cause brain damage. So with that in mind, we can see why bridges have been practiced for so long, since for strikers, having a stronger neck and denser skull would help mitigate damage from head strikes and condition the skull for delivering powerful headbutts. And for grapplers, it would help you use your head more effectively to control an opponent, stay safer on the ground, and probably even help you stay safer if you took a nasty fall. Plus, the neck is a hugely overlooked area for general strength, and these weighted bridges really just hit it on a whole other level. After my testing, all my lifts felt so much stronger, like it's really crazy how much of a difference it makes. With all that being considered, I have to give this lift a 5 out of 5 on the esoteric gains meter. Episode 2 when we've already got our first 5. That's crazy. It's definitely not for everyone, but if you are one of the lucky people who are capable of doing this lift, it's a game changer. I've never in my life experienced neck training this powerful. Of course, with that being said, don't rush into this one. Don't even think about it if you aren't already capable of doing a good neck bridge. If you aren't there yet, just keep working on the bodyweight neck bridge, see if that works for you, and if you can do it competently and pain-free, then you can start with really light weights. And importantly to note, some people have more resilient spines than others, so especially if you had a prior neck injury, be cautious, it might just not be for you at this time. Like I said, it's not for everyone. There's nothing wrong with just not doing them or finding something else that works better for you if you have to. But if you can do these safely, this is the best way to push your neck strength to new limits. A truly incredible and awe-inspiring lift. I think I'll definitely keep going with this one. I think being able to press 100 pounds would be a good starting goal, but I'd love to see if I can do 200 one day. That's about all I have to say today, so thank you as always for watching. Remember to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe even leave a positive or insightful and well thought out comment. Special thanks to my Corundum Tier Ko-Fi member Don Crow, as well as everyone who showed their support on my Redbubble store, where you can get original designs by me printed on all kinds of different stuff. Links for all that stuff are in the description if you're interested. Stay safe, keep training, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye for now.